Welcome back, Ajahn.
Thank you.
You have many questions.
Really? Okay. Good. That's always nice. It's nice to have many questions.
Brother Eng-Boon wants to read them, so I will pass to him.
Excellent. Fire away. See what happens.
So the first two questions are about the 5 hindrances.
The
first one is, why is ill will easiest to overcome? And the other one is, kindly review with us the various ways to overcome the 5 hindrances. Thank you.
Okay, so this is like a long Dhamma talk in itself, but anyway, we will see what happens. So, why is ill will easy? Because ill will is, first of all, it is kind of unpleasant. There's very good, you have very good motivation to overcome ill will. Yeah, it's much more difficult to overcome sensual desire and these kind of things because it seems pleasant, it seems happy. It doesn't seem to be much of a problem. Whereas ill will is obviously destructive. I think most of us, we know that people who have metta and compassion, they are attractive to us. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I am always attracted to people who are kind. You feel at ease in their company. You want to be with people who are kind. Whereas people who are really angry are really actually quite unpleasant to be with. And you almost have to, you kind of want to shy away because it's just difficult, really. So we have the motivation. That's the first reason why it is easy to overcome ill will. I'm not comparing ill will and sensual pleasures. The 3 last hindrances, the dullness and drowsiness, restlessness and remorse and doubt, they are usually results of the first 2 hindrances. So if you have a lot of craving and desire, you are restless, because that's what craving is. Craving is a restless kind of energy. If you have a lot of ill will, and often you get tired and dull afterwards. And doubt always comes with these defilements, because when your mind is defiled, then you have doubts about what is right and what is wrong, basically, because that's what defilements, that distort your vision and all of these kind of things. So the first 2 are the most important, and they tend to result in the last 3. So ill will is the easier for that reason, also because it's quite easy to reflect on ill will in the right way. So what is it? But it's very, very briefly. When do we get angry? Usually we get angry with other people. Other people can be very upsetting. What was that saying? I think is something that Ajahn Brahmali said. Ajahn Brahmali has all these great sayings. There was something about, I think it was Jean-Paul Sartre, the French philosopher. You know Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosopher in France. He lived back in the 1950s and 60s or whatever. And he said something like to the effect that suffering is other people. Something like that, yeah. And other people are both the thing that we like the most and also the thing we find the most difficult. Would you agree with that? Other people are the things we are most attached to, the things that mean the most to us, but also very, very hard sometimes, depending on who the person is. And so when you have ill will and anger, usually it is about other people. So what we have to do to overcome ill will is to see other people in a new way. And a very simple way of seeing other people is to remember that they are more like robots than autonomous beings. Why do other people behave badly? Why do other people say things to you that are unpleasant? And the reason is because they are conditioned to do that. They are that way, not because they want to be that way, but because they have been conditioned to do that. In a certain situation, they react in a certain way, and they don't have much choice about it. So when someone says something unpleasant to you, it's not because they want to say something unpleasant, but because they can't stop themselves from saying something unpleasant. And once you know that, it's like a red traffic light. When the red traffic light goes red, or the traffic light goes red, you don't blame the traffic light. You don't say, why did it go red now? You knew I was coming. Stay green. Traffic lights don't listen to you. Regardless of what you say, it goes red and it goes green, according to some kind of electronic circuit or something. And people are like red traffic lights. When people go red, don't go near them. Because people are red in the face means they're angry usually, so don't go too close. You have a problem. So the idea is that people are conditioned to be the way they are. If they behave badly, it's because they are trapped in that bad behavior. Very difficult for them to change. You try to change yourself and you realize how hard it is to change yourself. And once you know how hard it is to change yourself, you don't expect other people to do it. You actually expect them to do bad things. And so make it impersonal. When we think that other people's behavior is personal, they are doing this to me, every time you think like that, you're going to get upset. But if you know it is impersonal, got nothing to do with you, it only has to do with the other person, their conditioning, their programming, their personality, you can forgive so easily. That's how you overcome ill will. And it's surprisingly easy. You just need to, what you need to do is you need to brainwash. You have to think like this and really, of course you have to believe that this is true, otherwise it's going to be very hard. But if once you start to kind of see the world like that, actually you stop getting angry, far less angry than you used to be. And even those of you who are not very angry already, get even less angry. And this is kind of the beauty of this. So it's not that hard to do. So this is how you overcome the first of the second of the five hindrances. The first of the five hindrances, sensual pleasures, or attachment to that, or craving for these kind of things. Well, we have just learned now about the drawbacks. You have to contemplate the drawbacks. You have to contemplate the benefit of renunciation, how every time you are free of those hindrances, that first hindrance to some extent, how you feel free, how you feel a sense of peace, how you feel that you are attaining something higher. And as you do that, you actually, you start to leave it behind. You don't actually worry so much about it anymore. But it is more tricky because it's harder to see that one than the ill will. And tomorrow, we're going to have a look at the Upakkilesa Sutta, which is a long sutta on the various kind of defilements of the mind. And I'm going to go through all kinds of mental defilements that are tricky on the path as we do that. There's also from the life of the Buddha. So I think that is enough as far as the hindrances are concerned. So maybe next question, please.
The next question is, what is the difference between emotions and suffering? Should we allow ourselves to experience a range of emotions, including sadness and anger, or only allow ruminations on happiness?
You should, it's not about allowing, it's about training the mind out of bad habits. If you say allowing, then it's almost like you're going to suppress certain emotions. I would never recommend you to suppress anything, because suppression can lead to all kinds of problems. So suppression is not the best way. So feel what you have to feel, but learn to direct the mind in such a way that you feel less of the problematic emotions. Less anger, less ill will, because you look at people in a new way. That is really the critical thing, is to develop. This is what we mean by right view. This is what we mean by developing perceptions, is that your attitude is changed, your outlook changes, and then you just don't get angry anymore. If you see other people as victims of their own personality, victims of their own conditioning, then instead of getting angry with them when they do bad things, you have compassion with them. Because you know that they are the first victim. You don't have to make yourself another victim. You can just shrug your shoulders and say, okay, it's not my problem. It's, if you're getting angry, it's your problem. It's not my problem. So don't make it your problem. But understand that they definitely have a problem, because most likely they don't want to do bad things. Most likely they don't want to, to shout at you or whatever it is that they do that is bad. And because they don't want to, but they can't help themselves, then you can have compassion. So train yourself out of the bad habits. Sadness is something that you can also train yourself out of by learning to have a different perspective on things. Sadness may happen when someone dies, for example, someone close to you dies, and then instead of focusing on the loss, you can focus on the fact that they have lived well, that they're likely to be reborn in a good destination. They're probably sitting in heaven looking down at you and saying, get on with your life, enjoy yourself. And maybe we'll see you later on up here in the heavenly realm, or something like that. You just look at things differently. The reason we get very sad is because sometimes it feels like we have a permanent loss in our life. But actually, if you have had good friends and good people around you, you have actually often gained something through that person, and you actually have been given a leg up by that person, and then you can actually continue practicing on that basis, and you can have a sense of gratitude towards them. Thank you for being being there for me. Yay, I wish you all well wherever you have been reborn now. So it's a matter of perspective, a small change in perspective, and you won't really get so sad anymore. You just need to think about things in a new way. So don't think that you allow or don't allow emotions, but instead learn how to develop out of certain emotions and develop other emotions instead. Okay.
The next question. Dear Ajahn, thank you for the teaching. During meditation, after a long hour of sitting, the body feels pain. The pain will affect the concentration. At times, it is like a knife keep poking on us. How to deal with this situation? How can we let go of the feeling? Thank you.
Let go of the feeling, you change your posture. Yeah, let go of the feeling. That's the basic way of getting rid of bad feelings, change your posture, because there is nothing that says that you have to be in the same posture all the time. I really don't recommend you to do that. I know that there are certain schools of meditation that say you should contemplate those painful feelings. I have never found anyone who learned all that much from contemplating those feelings, to be honest with you. They contemplate the sea changing, the sea, whatever, but it doesn't really lead to any great insight. The best insight is when the painful feeling is completely gone and you learn from the absence of the painful feeling. Learning from absence is far more powerful than learning from presence. So just go with the happy feelings, enjoy the meditation, change your posture. Don't change your posture straight away. If there's a little bit of pain, okay, that's to be expected. But if there is a recurring pain and your mind gets obsessed with it, so it kind of stays with the pain, that is usually the time to change. Okay.
Dear Ajahn, thank you for the wonderful lessons today. When we have right view, yet lack confidence to act, weighing drawbacks and benefits, what is your advice to move forward? Thank you.
All right, so right view is not something you either have or don't have. It's something that you have to a particular degree. Yeah, you have a degree of right view and a degree of not right view. So this is always changing and always kind of moving in a certain direction. So keep on strengthening the right view. Just keep on practicing. Yeah, don't force yourself to do something if you don't feel confident. But just keep on with what you're doing already and strengthen that further and see where that leads you. That's number one advice. Number two advice, don't allow yourself to be held back by fear. Yeah, a lot of people in the world are very fearful, and they say they're held back by fear because this is too frightening or whatever. And sometimes if we are held back too much by fear, we don't get anything done in life. Nothing exciting ever happens, nothing interesting ever happens, because fear itself becomes a blockage. So sometimes do things that are a little bit frightening. Challenge yourself a little bit. Yeah, get out of your comfort zone. Remember that the worst thing that can happen is you die. And if you die, you're a good person, you get a good rebirth. So nothing much lost anyway, right? So if you die, okay, that's fine. That's the worst thing that can happen, but you usually don't die anyway. I mean, how many people die in Singapore randomly? It's not that many. So you sometimes step out of your comfort zone a little bit. Yeah, come travel somewhere to a nice retreat center, get yourself on a meditation retreat. Sometimes people are afraid of traveling to Perth, but it's kind of the most benign, the most easy thing to do in the whole world is to come to Perth and come to the retreat center and stay there for a while. Yeah, it is utterly non-scary. It's probably more scary to stay in Singapore than to come to Perth. So don't limit yourself by fear. I think this is a lot of people say that they often regret the fact that they have lived a life limited by fear. So do stretch yourself a little bit. Do sometimes try things out. If you want to do more on the spiritual path, come to the monastery, stay with us for a while and see what it feels like when you do that. And then you start to kind of opens up new avenues, new possibilities. It doesn't mean you become a monastic, but it means you have another experience that you can add to all the experiences in your life. You have more clarity about the spiritual path and all of these kind of things. And you get to see Ajahn Brahm give a talk at Bodhinyana Monastery. And that can be very powerful. If you think you know Ajahn Brahm, I can guarantee you don't. Because you are used to Ajahn Brahm, he's kind of the joker, the storyteller. And then sometimes you see him giving a talk in the hall to the whole monastic sangha, and it's a completely different ball game sometimes. It's a completely different kind of talk. Yeah, Ajahn Brahm is serious. What? Is that possible? Not, he's serious, and he talks some deep Dhamma, and it can be very, very inspiring. And just the feeling of being around someone like Ajahn Brahm. Sometimes he's very peaceful, and you can feel the peace. You close your eyes, and then you start to feel peaceful, because it's like transmission through osmosis. It seeps through you, goes inside, and you can't avoid feeling a similar kind of peace. And that's beautiful when that happens. You feel it's a good vibe. When I was in California recently, I learned a new word, juju. Yeah, it's a good juju. Juju is like a good vibe. Yeah, the juju is really powerful. And so I picked up the latest kind of California slang. And it was fascinating, because when I was traveling around the US, I was starting to use juju everywhere. And the people over 40, what is he talking about? No one understood what this word was meaning. It was kind of fascinating. Anyway, so there you are now. I taught you one of the kind of the words to use. Juju, J-U is the word. Juju. Anyway, next question, please.
Okay. How do we deal with the sense of self or conceit that arises frequently and attached to, open inverted comma, my meditation?
The thing is that you should remember that when you do have some success in your meditation, actually there is less self in there. When you become more peaceful, there is less self. So if you remember that state of meditation properly, actually there's less grounds for having conceit, because there's less self. So just remember what it really was like, and then you kind of are already on the way away from that conceit. The other thing to remember is that there are people in the world who get far, far better meditation than you do. Whoever you are, unless you're an arahant already, but assuming not an arahant. There are people who get far less better meditation than you do, and they are not conceited at all. In fact, they are often the humblest of people. Someone like Ajahn Brahm, really, really humble person, actually. I lived with Ajahn Brahm for almost 30 years. He's actually extraordinarily humble. One of the things I really appreciate about him, even though he is so accomplished in so many different ways. And to me, it's the most inspiring people in the world, actually very humble people. So to get conceited about your meditation is like really silly. It doesn't make any sense at all to get conceited about it. Just enjoy it. You're just one person in a long lineage of disciples of the Buddha. There's nothing special about you. And the more special you are, the less special you feel. This is the weird thing. The arahants are the ones who feel the least special in the world. They feel completely ordinary, even though from our perspective they are really extraordinary. But from their inner perspective, there's nothing there. There's nothing of interest. They've just done the practice. They've reached the end of the path. They've reached a completely natural state. So if these people who are the most interesting in the whole world, the most accomplished in the whole world, they have no sense of self, well, there's no reason for you to have it either. So see things from a higher perspective, and then just no need to be conceited. One of the nice things about life is that we are always changing. One day your meditation is good, tomorrow it's bad. Who is the real you? The one with good meditation or the one with bad meditation? Maybe the one with the bad meditation is the real you, Then you have no reason to be conceited whatsoever. But so you can't really, my point is you can't measure yourself because you're always changing. You're always morphing into something else. And this is to me, one of the most kind of beautiful ways of thinking about what it means to be a human being. The fact that we're always changing, because it means that we are moving from one kind of person to another one. And especially when you see this happening over lifetimes, it means that we have been everything in this world. We have been the dum-dums, we have been the most intelligent, we have been the most ordinary, we have been men, we have been women, we've been rich, we've been poor, we've been wealthy, we have been, everything in the whole way. We've been handicapped, non-handicapped, sometimes all of those things. We have sometimes been born in the West, sometimes in Asia, sometimes in Africa, sometimes in South America. all of these things are inside of us. And because all of these things are inside of us, when you see another person, you should be able to see yourself in that person. That's very powerful. Look at someone and see yourself in that person. That is me. That is one incarnation of me. I have been like that. I will be like that in the future. And then it becomes like you can start to relate to all of humanity, whoever they are, regardless of who they are. And this is really the way of thinking, because then you take away this idea of conceit, because you're just changing all the time, moving from one state to another one. How can you compare yourself to others? You can't, because you're always moving. Then the conceit falls away. Next question, please.
Okay, Ajahn, how did you come to believe in rebirth? Did you always believe in rebirth?
Always, I don't know about always, but in this lifetime, yes, always. I don't know, I didn't really have, when I was young, I didn't know anything about Buddhism when I was young, I was up to 20 before I knew anything about Buddhism. But I never had any big problems with the idea of rebirth. To me, it seemed like fairly natural. Why not believe in rebirth? To me, it's kind of seemed natural. For other people, it's the opposite. It seems completely unnatural to believe in rebirth. But it's not because I am smart that I believe in rebirth. It's just because that's my conditioning. I think that very likely I was a Buddhist, probably a Buddhist monastic in the past life. So kind of rebirth to me is like second nature. Of course, there is rebirth. So I would say, so to me it's just a matter of conditioning, and that's kind of the thing. I often think the question, why am I a Buddhist monk? This also is kind of one of the big conundrums in my life, because it doesn't make any sense. Born in Norway, no Buddhist friends, nothing, and no idea. Far away, cold country, cold people. Actually, no, the Norwegians are really nice people, but it can seem cold on the surface because they're kind of a little bit sort of, they're not very, when you don't know them, they kind of, there's kind of are very reserved, maybe that's the right word. But then there are, for me, becoming a monk was very natural. It just kind of happened. I can't really explain why I became a monk. It just happened. Suddenly one day, oh, I'm a monk now. All right. It's a bit like that, and so to me it's just a conditioning process. For me, I like to say it's a habit that I'm a monk. Yeah, I was probably a monk in the past life, maybe a nun in the past life, and so it's a habit from the past. Oh, now I'm a monk again. That's kind of interesting, because it's very easy to be conceited to think, yeah, I'm a monk, and that's because I'm really, really, really smart and wise. That's why I'm a monk, right? But actually, no, it isn't really like that. It's because of your conditioning that you are a monk. There's nothing to be conceited about being a monk or not being a monk. And so all of these things are the same thing. Whether you believe in rebirth, whether you think you're a better meditator, whether you're a monk or a layperson, it's conditioning, it's habit. And when I thought about that, I started to realize kind of how scary it is. If I am a monk because of habit, maybe it's a bad idea. If I'm just doing this because it's a habit, maybe it's kind of a completely nutty idea to become a monk, but I haven't really investigated it properly. So once I realized that, I realized actually I really need to investigate these Buddhist teachings. Am I a monk because of habit or because it's wise to be a monk? I mean, after a while I thought, being a monk is probably a good idea, so I stayed as a monk. But it made me really investigate the Buddhist teachings more carefully, because I realized that actually I don't really understand why I am a monk. I don't understand why I'm a Buddhist. I don't understand anything, basically. So let me get into these teachings and see what's going on. So that's kind of the upside of that. Once you start to understand how conditioned you are, you start to become more careful. You start to investigate more, because you realize how you are trapped or potentially trapped in that conditioning. Okay, maybe one more question.
One more question.
Eiling, you're the boss. You decide what needs to be done here. Yeah.
There are two last ones.
Two last ones. Okay, let's do two then. Yeah.
The next question. Dear Ajahn, can you explain what is the difference between the cutting off of the first fetter, or Sakkaya Ditthi, and realization of anatta, or non-self? Thank you.
It's the same thing. Because when you cut off that fetter, it means that you have seen non-self all the way to the core. That's why that fetter goes. Sakkaya Ditthi is the view that there is a inherent part of the personality. And once you see through that, that's actually what it means to see non-self. So it's the same thing here. The full non-self only happens when you become an arahant. That's when it's not just a view, but your entire psychology. You no longer see yourself in any way whatsoever. But the view is established when you become a stream enterer.
Okay, the last question. Dear Ajahn, the sutta that you mentioned on Bodhisattva path with wrong views, does it mention it is with memory of ascetic Sumedha and Dipranka Buddha? As I understand, ascetic Sumedha is after gotten confirmation from Dipranka Buddha, he decided to take on the Bodhisattvayana path and eventually become the Buddha. Was it a wrong view? I might have misunderstood your explanation.
Yeah, no, it's not in the suttas, that's the point. These are stories that came a long time after the suttas. So this story, I think this story is found in the, maybe found in the Jataka Nidana, the introduction to the Jataka, or maybe in the Charya Pitaka. Charya Pitaka is the conduct of the Bodhisattva to become a Buddha, but it's found in stories that came long time after the Buddha. The Buddha didn't teach these things. And so that is why these are more like legends that grew up or came to the front of Buddhism after the Buddha passed away. Because when the Buddha passed away, everyone was sad. The Buddha is gone. Where is he? What happened? What's the real story? And then the story started to grow because they wanted to figure out who the Buddha really was. It's kind of a standard thing that happens in humanity when someone very important to you passes away. So these are stories. No one really knows where they came from. What we do know, they did not come from the Buddha. So who actually did remember for incalculable eons back to know that the Sumedha, and that we don't know anything about where it came from. Most likely it is just a story that someone thinks they may have remembered. It's probably not evil, anything like that. It's just that it is a degree, probably a degree of illusion in that, and not the reality. So these things should not, in my opinion, should not be taken too seriously, because the evidence in the suttas points in the opposite direction. The evidence in the suttas points to the Buddha not knowing what he was doing, having wrong view all the time, almost abusing past Buddhas. In the Gatikara Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 82, 82 I think it is, 81? 81, okay, I always get that wrong. 81, and he abuses the past Buddhas, right? Buddha Kassapa. So everything in the suttas points to the Buddha or the Gautama, Buddha Gautama not really having known what was going on, not practicing a path, not being clear about what was happening here. So the whole idea of there being a bodhisattva path seems highly dubious, and that this is a later development in Buddhism that was never taught by the Buddha. Okay, everyone, that is all for today. Let's pay respect to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Before we go, we'll do the Arahang Samma Sambuddho together.
Thank you, Ajahn.